Sound good.
Okay. Yep. Hey, everybody. Dan Harris here. Time for TPH Live, 10% Happier Live. It's our daily sanity break. And this is a break for beginner meditators or expert meditators. We got you covered either way. We do 5 minutes of meditation, and then we take your questions. Every day we bring on one of the greatest meditation teachers or meditation practitioners we know. And today we've got a goodie. Richie Davidson, a friend of mine. He's based in Wisconsin, where he's really done pioneering work in the area of neuroscience, where he's been peering into the brains of meditators and non-meditators and really giving us a ton of compelling information about the way meditation and mindfulness impact our brains. And that, in my view, that science has really made a huge difference in terms of normalizing this practice so that more and more people can access it. So, Richie, thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
I said a little bit about your bio, but can you just give us a little bit more about your background?
Well, I'm a neuroscientist and a psychologist by training, and in the early part of my career, I was motivated by the question of why is it that some people are more vulnerable to life's challenges than other people? A question very relevant to the situation we're all now in. And I was interested in strategies that may help nudge people along this continuum toward increased resilience and flourishing that may help them deal in a more adaptive, a more beneficial way with the stresses and strains of everyday life. And that's when I first discovered meditation. This was after my second year of graduate school at Harvard. And at that time, the faculty at Harvard thought I was going off the deep end and were not particularly encouraging of my forays into this area. And it literally took 20 years. I was a closet meditator for 20 years, or 18 years to be precise. And it really wasn't until I met the Dalai Lama for the first time in 1992 that he encouraged me to be more vocal and to come out of the closet about my interests. And since then, I've been doing this. And really, this is very much why I feel I'm on the planet today, is to do research in this area, to help people understand the value of this and really think of it as a public health issue. And one of the analogies that I often use is when human beings first evolved on this planet, none of us were brushing our teeth. And today, virtually every person on the planet brushes their teeth. And this is not part of our genome. We've learned to do this because it's good for us. It's good for our personal physical hygiene. What we're talking about is something good for your personal mental hygiene.
I love that. And I'm glad you're on the planet. Let me ask one last question before we dive into the meditation. I know one of the things you're interested in talking about today is something I strongly agree with, which is that this social distancing that everybody's been asked to do is maybe misnamed. We should instead be calling it physical distancing, because lacking social connection can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. And we're very fortunate to be living in a world where we can physically distance at the same time that we socially connect. And so I think that it's really important to interpret the recommendation of our public health experts as physical distancing and not as social distancing. Social connection is more important at this time than at any other time. And one of the things that I think many people, at least, are observing is that they find themselves, as well as their friends and loved ones, reaching out more, connecting. I mean, I've had the experience of having friends that I haven't talked to in quite a long time in other parts of the world, sending me a note, checking in. Can we have a video chat together? And that's really comforting and I think really important at this time.
1,000% agree. And I've seen the same thing in my own life, and it's really cool. But my high school friends have started a text chain where we're sharing embarrassing pictures from high school. which I will never share publicly, but they're really funny. Uh, so, Richie, should we do a little bit of meditation and then take some questions afterwards?
Sure, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
So let's all find a comfortable posture and sit in a way that's upright, but not too tight, not too loose. And let's bring our awareness into our bodies. We can keep our eyes open or closed, whichever is more comfortable. And let's begin by simply bringing awareness into our bodies, feeling our feet. They may be touching the floor, they may be on a cushion. And having a sense of our bodies grounded. And in the tradition in which I practice, one of the things that we always do at the beginning of every period of practice, however long or short it is, we like to remind ourselves what our motivation is for practicing. Why is it that we are here together? And let's see if we can find a place where we can recognize that calming our mind and opening our heart is beneficial not only for ourselves, but for all the other people that we touch, directly or indirectly. So let's spend a few moments reflecting on this motivation and seeing if we can identify this altruistic intent for our practice. And now, let's move on to this quality of appreciation. Appreciation is the experiencing of happiness or joy in recognition of someone or something being of some benefit. One of the opportunities in the face of this horrendous challenge that we are all facing is it poignantly illustrates how many other people we depend upon and how our lives, even in this simplified way in which we're being asked to live, is dependent on the generosity of others. There are people who deliver our food, perhaps. There are people who deliver our mail. There are people who still collect the garbage. And then there are people who are our frontline workers, who are our emergency medical personnel, who are our healthcare providers. There are also our teachers who are helping to teach our children in these circumstances. So let's now bring one or two people into our mind who are helping us in some way, whose actions are of some benefit. And let's bring them into our minds and our hearts and allow this sense of appreciation to develop. And we may even think about what we would say to this person if we were to see them, how we would express our gratitude. So let's now, as we're ending this very short practice, thank these people, and then let go and simply maintain our awareness. And as we end this period of practice, let's dedicate whatever insight or merit, whatever we may have learned from this, and think about how we may apply it in our everyday life. Perhaps even what we might say to this person or persons the next time we see them. So thank you all for this opportunity, and may you all be safe and healthy. And open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie. I just to say a word in support of this kind of practice. It's just I've heard this sentiment expressed by scientists presenting the results of their studies to the Dalai Lama at some of the scientific convenings I've been to, organized by you and others, where the scientists who are researching what this kind of practice, where you call to mind somebody or a large group of beings and wish them well. These practices are sometimes referred to as loving kindness or compassion practices or friendliness practices, a whole bunch of names for them. But the conclusion scientists are reaching over and over, from what I understand, is that compassion, or you might even say love, is a skill. It's not a factory setting that you cannot tinker with. It's a skill. And I think that's just an incredibly radical notion. So I felt like expressing that. So thank you for teaching us the meditation. I've got a comment or a question coming in here from Gina. What's the best way to deal with being treated by others as a potential pathogen and treating others the same way, even from a physical distance?
Well, it's a real challenge, and thank you for asking that question. When I go out for a walk, I'm really aware of that issue of being treated as a potential pathogen and treating others. And what I try to do is to see others as a human being with the same feelings that I have. We all have the same wish to be happy and to be free of suffering. And one of the things that I found is you can smile at a person from a distance. You can also, in your mind, wish them well. You can wish that they be safe and they be healthy. So whether they're a pathogen or not, it doesn't matter. We all have pathogens. So I think that just having that positive stance toward others can be really helpful.
I mean, it is a practice. I'm not saying this for you, Richie, because you already know it, but for Gina, you walking through the streets, you can do these loving kindness practices, either for any individual you see or for all beings, silently repeating phrases like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. And that is as sort of contrived or treacly as it may seem on some, sorry, I've got a howling cat here behind me. As contrived or treacly as that may seem on some level, again, we've got a scientist here who can tell you there's a lot of science to show that this kind of training of the mental muscle of friendliness, compassion, love is really beneficial, both not just both, psychologically, physiologically, and in terms of your behavior. All right, here's another question from Utku, I think is the pronunciation. Hello from Montreal. What should I expect when I meditate? Sometimes I expect some sort of positive feeling, and that gives me pressure.
Pressure. Well, I think that the most important thing is to try to not expect anything in particular. I mean, you may have a pleasant experience. You may have an unpleasant experience. And it really doesn't matter. It's still training the same muscle. Sometimes we can do a bout of physical exercise and it's really painful, yet it's still beneficial. When we become aware of the chaotic nature of our mind, it may provoke some anxiety, but that's okay as long as it's not too intense. And so I would say we're really inviting a shift from a mode of doing to a mode of being. And in the mode of being, we really try not to have such strong expectations.
Yeah. I think expectations are the most noxious thing you can bring to the meditation party. Although, of course, they're super normal, but you may just want to notice your expectations and do your best to let them go until they come back. Al writes to you, Richie, what's your best suggestion about handling the continued anxiety and fear that will persist for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think it's true that there will be this uncertainty, this anxiety and fear. I think recognizing that these emotions are arising, not having them consume all of you and hijack you. Sometimes when we have these emotions, we have them contract us so that all we are, when we say, I am fearful, really? All of you is fearful? Is that really true? Can you find a part of yourself that's not fearful? And so, even the language that we use in describing emotions is one of contraction. And I think being able to see the emotions like we see a cloud in the sky, it appears, it may move, it may change, and then it eventually disappears. And so cultivating a stance where we can be aware of these emotions, but not have them completely take us over can be very helpful.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Eric asks, Richie, is there any research that shows that an individual's practice is of benefit to others in a social way?
Absolutely. One of the ways that we actually study meditation, I sometimes get contacted by researchers who don't have a lot of funds and they want to do meditation research and they're just using questionnaires. I say, don't give the questionnaires to the meditators, give them to their spouses and ask the spouse how they're doing. And it turns out, we and others have done that and there are benefits that people in their immediate environment report. So I think that that's a real testament to their impact on others.
Yes. My wife would say the same thing many times over. Here's Lisa writing, thank you for this helpful resource. Can you address the question I've heard many people ask? Here's the question. How is meditation going to help in the middle of a pandemic? How is this applicable to my life?
Well, it's applicable to your life because this is when we need it the most. We are being challenged, all of us, across the whole planet. And we have this sense of uncertainty and anxiety every day. And in this situation in particular, it is enormously helpful to find some peace and emotional balance that we can cultivate through training our mind. It is accessible to everyone. And I think it is especially important. And also, as Dan was alluding to earlier, it actually changes our biology. And so we actually are physically healthier when we are able to cultivate well-being through these practices. There are really good, hard-nosed biological data to support this. And that could be helpful in the face of this pandemic.
I mean, here's another way it's been described by some guests on the show, which is if we've seen many examples of how panic is contagious. Go try to find toilet paper, for example, or look at all the xenophobia that's being directed against people of Asian extraction. But calm is contagious too. If you're the calmest person in a room, that can change the nature of the room. It can change the nature of the room if you're there physically or if you're there virtually. So working on yourself in this way is a public service.
Absolutely. And every time we engage in physical distancing, I think we can actually remind ourselves that we're doing this not only for our own benefit, but because we are going to benefit others by not being viral vectors and particularly affecting those who may be most vulnerable. So every time you may be bothered by or get frustrated by what we're being asked to do, think of it as an act of generosity.
Yes. Richie, stick around for 1 second. Just in closing, I want to point out that on Fridays, we try to identify a charitable effort that we're really excited about, and we're trying to get people in our network to also get excited about it. This week, Family Promise. Just going to read a little bit about them. Family Promise and its partners are on the front lines of providing life-saving interventions such as shelter, food, supplies, and emergency care for thousands of families nationwide. We've got some pictures of Joyce and her daughter Serenity, who secured housing through Family Promise during this pandemic after they lived in a shelter for 2 months. Family Promise states that 100% of the donations made through the link in the description below here, in the video description below here on YouTube, will be designated for COVID-19 relief while this message is in place, and any excess funds will be redirected to the areas of greatest need. We'll be donating, and we hope you do too. Richie, thank you so much for doing this on a Friday afternoon. We really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for all you're doing, Dan. It's really appreciated.
Appreciate that. Okay, everybody, we won't see you again until Monday. Our guest will be Diana Winston. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay home, and we'll see you Monday.